feel like Goulet has been getting in a lot of $100 and up new pens and not much in the more affordable range below that. We had the new Safari, and I think a couple of others from brands that Goulet already carried, but it just seems like so few, especially next to the new brands you've been carrying, like Visconti and Namiki, that are super high-end. What gives? Is there a reason Goulet seems to be reaching more and more for expensive pens? Jamie, thank you for just being straight up, calling me out, and just asking me these questions. You're actually not the only one. A lot of people have been asking this. We've been sending out newsletters that have just happened to be featuring a lot more high-end pens, and people are like, what gives? I can't afford a $1,000 pen. Why do you keep showing me these pens I can't have? And people get mad. Other people are like, these pens are gorgeous. I love seeing them, even though I can't afford them. Other people are like, I want to buy it. So it's all over the place. But yes, I do agree. And I fully recognize how high-end, heavy our new product offering has been lately. A lot of that is because we've never offered these like really high-end pens before. For the last 6.5 years, we've been offering, you know, all the really affordable stuff. We've never had the really high-end stuff. So this is a new foray for us. So being that it's a new foray, whenever we're launching a new line of pens, it's gonna get a lot of coverage. You know, it happened last year. We carried Cross. Cross had, you know, a somewhat decent range. Well, actually their stuff was not that inexpensive either, but had a range of pricing. And we, you know, we're talking about Cross a lot last year. We definitely got feedback where people were like, I don't care about Cross, stop showing me Cross. But it's how it happens whenever we carry a new line, you know, especially something as extensive as Namiki or something like Visconti, where they just keep coming out with new stuff all the time. Like Visconti comes out with way more new stuff than anybody else. It just how they've been doing it. So part of it is like, yeah, they come out with new stuff that's in small batches and then it's gone after a couple of months. That's how they do. So some of that is going to be, you know what, it's just how they roll. And that's as part of, you know, representing them, that's how it's going to be. Now we are trying to mix in as much like super expensive exclusive stuff as we can. But I will say, like, in the springtime, like there's a lot of stuff that comes out in the holidays, but in the springtime, like everybody kind of goes into retraction mode a little bit. And then we do get some more pens that come out, like the Lamis, you know, that we usually come out with a special edition, like the Dark Lilac was great. You know, there's some other stuff that usually comes out. A lot of things that were going to come out in the spring have actually been pushed back a little bit. You know, like the Pilot Kakuno was supposed to be coming out in the spring. That got pushed back until later in the year. You know, other things like that just, and then there's other things that honestly, it's not whole new lines. It's just an additional new color. So it just doesn't get as much fanfare as a whole new line would. So a lot of it is just our own promotional muster that we put behind something. When it's a new line, a new model, you know, there's more to talk about. People are less familiar with it. So there's more to share. If it's like, you know, a Dark Lilac, it's like, oh, it's a purple pen. You know, but everybody, for the most part, knows what a Safari is. So it's not going to get quite the same degree of oomph as a new line would. So that's part of it. And so literally my explanation is we have strategically carried these high-end brands. It happens to be that they've come at around the same time. It happens to be that they're getting a lot of fanfare just because that's how it worked out. It's not like we're going this way and we're never going back. It's really not like that at all. With a lot of the lower end stuff, or the more affordable stuff, whatever, I hate to call things low end, but the more affordable products, you know, the Pilot Metropolitans, Gin House, things like that, there's a lot of churn with these types of products, and especially like brands and lines, because you have to make such an investment with the lower end stuff. I keep saying lower end. With the I'll call it like the more mass produced stuff. So things like Visconti and Namiki and all that are not mass produced by any means. This kind of stuff is mass produced. You know, they make it in large quantities, minimal handwork involved. They keep the low price down and they sell it in huge volume. So when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, they're not going to come out with quite as many models just because you might have to sell 5 million pens to pay back all the initial research and development and equipment and promotion and all this other kind of stuff worldwide. So that's a ton of pens. And they just may not come out with that many. So what they're going to do is they're going to take the existing models they have and just come out with new colors. That's a lot of times what happens in the lower end pens. Again, I keep saying lower end. the affordable pens, excuse me. And then when you get into the expensive stuff, it's a lot more handwork one way or the other. So whether they're making one, you know, exclusive high-end pen or another, they can change the design, they can change the models and stuff like that, and do it more frequently because they have the price to absorb some of that. They have, you know, more individual craftsmen and stuff that are working on it that are going to be spending the same amount of time on an older pen versus a newer pen. So they're going to change things up maybe a little more often. So there's just going to be some of that aspect of like new things in the high-end stuff a little bit more because they're going to be, you know, having exclusives and some of that kind of stuff. Yeah, and that's just the best of my explanation right now. It's not that I have a bias towards them or not. It just happens to be that that's how things have lined up, at least for these last couple of months. You know, Namiki was something that we had been approached about a year ago, and then we went and saw them in person when we went to visit Jacksonville, Pilot USA, last November. And then it's literally been in the works since last November for us to carry the Namiki line. So it's been super long-term, like, you know, plan to carry this brand. We've been approached by other higher end brands that we haven't pursued and may not pursue. You know, I mentioned Goulet earlier. That was one that we were approached a couple of years ago about doing, and it was like, yeah, I just don't think that that's for us. And we never pursued it. You know, other ones like Graf von Faber-Castell, we've talked to them. We've talked to Karen Dosh. You know, we've talked to some of these other, you know, Pelican obviously has, we're a Pelican retailer, you know. Well, we're Faber-Castell and other ones too. And we just haven't pulled the trigger on these yet because we're not trying to force it. You know what I mean? We try to gauge interests. We try to, you know, go off of where the demand is. There's definitely demand for Visconti. Namiki's a little more roll of the dice, but you know, we've been pretty pleased with its reception so far. So I don't want you to think that I'm like getting away from like who we really are and all this kind of stuff. For me, it's just like I've been able to learn and grow and appreciate these high-end pens more. I also really appreciate the full range of pens, as I've said many times in Q&A before. So I view it as they're all beautiful, and I love all of these pens, and I'm really happy to be able to offer a full range of them. Now, I am sorry that it's come on a little heavy on the high-end side of things, so bear with me. It's not always going to be the case there. We're going to try to have a good mix, and that is something too, like as our newsletter subscription grows and stuff like that, we're thinking about like, do we need to start like splitting it out and like, you know, segmenting like high-end versus, you know, affordable stuff and all these kinds of, these are all conversations that like we're trying to have because we don't want to continually be like pounding people one way or the other with things that they're not interested in. So I'm very open to this kind of feedback, and I'm receptive to it, and I completely, you know, hear you, and I'm not trying to force it down your throat, but you know, that's how it's been. It's going to lighten up, and then we're going to get into other things. We have like, you know, we have other things like Goulet notebooks that are, you know, a few dollars, and, you know, we're going to have other pens like the Pilot Kakuno is going to be a big deal, and that's going to be more in like September, but, you know, other things like that that I'm really excited about that are on the affordable side. And I'll continue kind of searching those out. There's just not as many of those available because we carry a lot of the good brands that fit us well.